they were getting from Netflix. Netflix are, if they like the idea, they'll pay for it, but they haven't got a contract. So they're desperate for money. Will she write a book?
The ultimatum didn't just shake Netflix. It exposed a terrifying truth Meghan Markle never wanted the world to see. Behind the curated smiles, the Montecito luxury, and the carefully staged image of warmth and empowerment, a desperate confrontation allegedly exploded behind closed doors. According to insiders, Meghan didn't walk into Netflix headquarters asking for help. She walked in demanding survival. She allegedly warned executives to fix her collapsing image or risk watching their entire multi-million-dollar Sussex investment burn alongside her reputation. This wasn't diplomacy. This wasn't partnership. This was panic disguised as power. Because at that moment, Meghan Markle wasn't fighting for a show. She was fighting for her future. The explosion came after one devastating revelation hit like a wrecking ball to her carefully crafted persona. News leaked that her father, Thomas Markle Sr., had been hospitalized in the Philippines, while Meghan was busy promoting her glossy lifestyle image to millions. The contrast was brutal. On screen, she smiled, teaching viewers how to create warm family moments, speaking about love, connection, and emotional authenticity. But behind the scenes, headlines screamed something else entirely, that her own father lay suffering, alone, far away, while she built a brand around family unity. The optics were catastrophic. The public didn't see a lifestyle icon. They saw a daughter whose story suddenly didn't match her reality, and insiders claim that's when Meghan allegedly snapped. Sources described her leaning heavily on Netflix's massive PR machine, expecting them to clean up what had become an uncontrollable narrative spiral. She reportedly believed that because Netflix had invested tens of millions into her brand, they now had an obligation to protect it. This wasn't just business, it was survival math. If Meghan's image collapsed, Netflix's Sussex investment could collapse with it. But here's the shocking truth that insiders whispered behind closed doors. Netflix isn't a royal palace. It doesn't protect family members. It protects profits. And Meghan may have realized that too late. Because while she allegedly issued demands, Netflix executives had something far more powerful than threats. They had data. Cold, brutal, unforgiving audience numbers. And those numbers weren't kind. One project failed. Then another. Then another. With Love, Meghan, the lifestyle show meant to reinvent her as relatable and warm, failed to ignite the audience she needed. Instead of connecting viewers to her humanity, it reminded them of her distance. She demonstrated recipes in a kitchen worth more than most viewers' entire homes, surrounded by celebrity friends and privilege impossible to ignore. The relatability she desperately needed never landed. The warmth felt staged, the connection felt forced, and audiences noticed. Then came Heart of Invictus, which should have been untouchable. The Invictus Games carried powerful emotional weight, telling the stories of wounded veterans fighting for redemption and pride. But instead of focusing purely on those heroes, critics claim the narrative drifted, placing Harry and Meghan at the center of attention instead of the veterans themselves. Viewers didn't tune in for royal validation, they tuned in for authenticity. And once again, something didn't land. Then came Polo, and that project confused nearly everyone. A documentary about elite polo culture, a sport disconnected from everyday audiences, struggled to find viewers who cared. It didn't inspire, it didn't connect, it didn't matter. 3 projects, 3 disappointments. And Netflix noticed. Because Netflix isn't emotional, it's mathematical. Every click matters, every view matters. Every second watched or ignored tells executives exactly where public loyalty stands. And what Netflix allegedly saw was terrifying for Meghan Markle's future. The public wasn't connecting with her content. Worse, they were losing interest entirely. This wasn't just about ratings, it was about relevance. And Meghan knew it. Because insiders claim her alleged confrontation wasn't driven by confidence, it was driven by fear. Fear that the father scandal would permanently stain her public image. Fear that future Netflix projects would collapse before they even began. Fear that the one financial lifeline protecting her Montecito empire could disappear. Netflix had already paid massive sums to secure the Sussex partnership. But what insiders understood, and what Meghan allegedly feared, was that Netflix could walk away at any time. Because Netflix doesn't protect investments forever, it protects results. And right now, results weren't coming. Behind the scenes, executives were reportedly watching closely as public sentiment shifted. Social media conversations grew harsher. Audience skepticism grew louder. Questions multiplied. Every contradiction, every controversy, every perceived inconsistency stacked on top of each other like bricks building a wall between Meghan and the audience she needed. This wasn't a temporary crisis, it was a credibility crisis. And credibility, once broken, is nearly impossible to repair.
Well, you mentioned 6 hours of Netflix. You forgot to mention 90 minutes of Oprah, where she lied from the beginning to the end.
Because the public wasn't just questioning her projects, they were questioning her authenticity. They remembered the Oprah interview. They remembered conflicting claims. They remembered emotional statements later challenged or reinterpreted. Each moment chipped away at trust, slowly transforming admiration into skepticism. And then came the father scandal, the one controversy insiders claim hit deeper than anything before. Because it wasn't about royal politics. It wasn't about media treatment. It wasn't about institutional conflict. It was personal, and personal scandals cut differently, because audiences can forgive professional mistakes. They can forgive creative failures, but personal contradictions, those linger. They reshape how people see you entirely. And Meghan's brand was built on emotional connection. Without that connection, everything collapsed. Insiders say Meghan allegedly believed Netflix could fix it, that their PR machine could shift headlines, redirect narratives, restore her image before irreversible damage took hold. But Netflix wasn't built to fix people. It was built to sell stories. And suddenly, Meghan Markle herself had become the story. At the center of the storm sat one terrifying reality Meghan allegedly couldn't ignore. Netflix had options, endless options, thousands of creators, thousands of projects, endless content pipelines filled with rising stars eager to deliver results without controversy, without conflict, without reputational risk. Meghan Markle needed Netflix. But Netflix didn't necessarily need Meghan Markle, and that imbalance changed everything. Because once power shifts in Hollywood, it rarely shifts back. Behind the scenes, executives reportedly watched carefully, analyzing public sentiment, monitoring engagement, calculating risk versus reward. Every decision became strategic. Every project became conditional. Every investment became cautious. Because the original Sussex deal was built on promise, on curiosity, on global fascination with royalty stepping into Hollywood. But fascination fades, and fascination without loyalty becomes dangerous. Now, insiders whispered about a looming make-or-break moment, a final chance for Meghan to prove her value before Netflix quietly moved on. A new project was reportedly in development, a romantic comedy designed to distance Meghan from royal drama and reintroduce her as a serious content creator. A project designed not to sell Meghan Markle the person, but Meghan Markle the producer. It was a strategic pivot. A desperate pivot. Because if audiences rejected that project too, insiders believe the consequences would be irreversible. Netflix wouldn't fight. Netflix wouldn't argue. Netflix would simply walk away. And Meghan Markle would lose the one platform capable of sustaining her post-royal empire. But even more shocking was what insiders began whispering next. Because the Netflix confrontation wasn't the only sign of desperation. Something else was happening behind the scenes. Something quieter, stranger, and far more revealing. And it involved paparazzi, Montecito, and a chilling possibility Meghan never expected. Because while Meghan Markle allegedly fought Netflix behind closed doors, something equally revealing was unfolding in public. And it didn't look like the behavior of someone in control. It looked like someone trying to remind the world she still mattered. And it started with one strange, calculated decision that immediately caught the attention of royal watchers and insiders alike. Meghan and Harry were suddenly photographed leaving a Beverly Hills restaurant on Valentine's Day.
What do you think Netflix's response would be to that? If Megxie went up to Netflix and said, "Fix my image or else," what do you think Netflix's response would be?
Not just casually spotted, not accidentally captured. No, these were perfectly framed, crystal clear, professionally shot images, timed and positioned exactly where photographers needed to be. And that's when the whispers exploded. Why would a couple who fled the royal family for privacy willingly appear in one of the most paparazzi-saturated areas in the world? Why would they drive over an hour from their Montecito sanctuary, an exclusive haven designed specifically to protect celebrities from media intrusion, just to be seen? It didn't make sense. Not unless being seen was the point. Because Montecito wasn't just any wealthy neighborhood, it was a fortress of discretion. Celebrities chose Montecito precisely because paparazzi rarely penetrated its invisible walls. Neighbors protected each other's privacy, restaurants respected anonymity. It was the one place Meghan and Harry could exist, without cameras stalking their every move. And yet suddenly, they weren't dining there anymore. They weren't appearing at their usual Montecito spots. In fact, insiders noticed something deeply unsettling. They hadn't been photographed at their favorite local restaurant in nearly 3 years. 3 years of silence, 3 years of absence, 3 years without being publicly welcomed into the elite social circle they once proudly joined. And that's when the coldest theory of all began circulating. What if Montecito had quietly turned its back on them? Because in Montecito, privacy wasn't just a luxury, it was a rule. Residents didn't tip off paparazzi. They didn't invite media attention. They didn't disrupt the invisible agreement protecting everyone's anonymity. And if someone broke that rule, if someone brought cameras into a space designed to keep them out, the consequences weren't loud or dramatic. They were silent. Invitations stopped. Doors quietly closed. Smiles faded. Presence disappeared. And suddenly, Meghan Markle wasn't being seen there anymore. Instead, she appeared where cameras were guaranteed. Beverly Hills. Hollywood territory, paparazzi territory, a place where visibility wasn't accidental, it was currency. Because visibility meant relevance. And relevance meant survival. The images themselves were flawless. Meghan smiling. Harry composed. The lighting perfect. The angles clean. The timing precise. It didn't look like intrusion, it looked like choreography, and insiders knew exactly how choreography like that worked. Photo agencies like Backlash openly paid for celebrity tips. They didn't randomly discover celebrities. They were told where to go, told when to arrive, told when the moment would happen. Which raised the question nobody wanted to ask out loud: who made that call? Because the same couple who publicly condemned media intrusion, who claimed paparazzi had made their lives unbearable, who fought legal battles against press harassment, were suddenly appearing exactly where paparazzi needed them to be. The contradiction was impossible to ignore. And contradictions destroy trust faster than any scandal, because trust depends on consistency, and Meghan Markle's image had become defined by inconsistency. On one hand, she spoke about privacy, protection, emotional harm caused by media exposure. On the other, she appeared in carefully staged public sightings that kept her visible, relevant, talked about. It created a perception problem Netflix couldn't fix. Because Netflix could promote content. But Netflix couldn't rewrite reality. Behind the scenes, the financial pressure fueling these decisions was growing heavier. Maintaining the Montecito lifestyle wasn't cheap. The mansion alone cost approximately $16 million. Security expenses reached millions annually. Staff salaries, travel costs, legal fees, luxury living, all demanded constant income, and income depended on deals. Deals depended on relevance. Relevance depended on audience interest. And audience interest was slipping because the Netflix deal that once promised unlimited financial security wasn't unlimited at all. Payments came project by project. Success determined continuation. Failure triggered reevaluation. And after 3 underperforming projects, insiders whispered that Netflix's patience was wearing thin. Because Netflix had no emotional loyalty, only business loyalty. And business loyalty disappears when numbers collapse. The rumored upcoming romantic comedy project wasn't just another show, it was Meghan's lifeline. Her final opportunity to prove she could deliver content audiences actually wanted. Not content fueled by controversy, not content dependent on royal drama, but content capable of standing on its own. If it succeeded, everything changed. Netflix would stay, deals would continue, money would flow. But if it failed, insiders believed Netflix would quietly walk away. No dramatic announcement, no public confrontation, just silence. The same silence that had swallowed countless failed Hollywood partnerships before. And Meghan Markle knew it. Because behind the confidence, behind the image, behind the power, there was one terrifying reality insiders believed she couldn't escape. Her brand had become fragile, not because of one scandal, not because of one controversy, but because of accumulation. Each contradiction, each failed project, each questionable decision, each public perception stacking on top of the last, until the foundation itself began to crack. And no PR machine, not even Netflix's, could rebuild a foundation the public no longer trusted. Because public trust isn't manufactured, it's earned. And once audiences decide how they feel about you, reversing that decision becomes almost impossible. Which is why insiders believed Meghan's alleged ultimatum to Netflix wasn't an act of strength. It was an act of fear. Fear of losing relevance. Fear of losing financial security. Fear of losing control over a narrative she once dominated effortlessly. Because when Meghan first entered Hollywood after leaving the royal family, she wasn't just famous, she was unstoppable. Every network wanted her, every brand chased her, every headline revolved around her. She was the story. But stories evolve, and audiences evolve faster. Curiosity fades. fascination fades. And eventually, only one question remains. Does the audience still care? Netflix executives didn't need public opinion polls to answer that question. They had viewership data. And data doesn't lie. It doesn't care about headlines. It doesn't care about reputation. It doesn't care about ultimatums. It cares about numbers. And numbers decide everything. Because in Hollywood, power isn't determined by who makes demands. It's determined by who delivers results. And Meghan Markle was now standing at the most dangerous crossroads of her entire career. Because if Netflix walked away, the consequences wouldn't just be financial, they would be existential. Netflix wasn't just a deal, it was validation. Validation that she remained relevant, valuable, powerful. Without that validation, the illusion of Hollywood dominance would collapse. And once that illusion collapses, rebuilding it becomes nearly impossible because Hollywood never waits. It replaces, it forgets, it moves on, which is why insiders believed Meghan's alleged ultimatum wasn't just about fixing her image, it was about saving her future. Because Netflix wasn't just her partner, it was her last shield against irrelevance. And if that shield disappeared, the world would finally see what Meghan Markle feared most. Not scandal, not controversy, not criticism, but obscurity.